Hello YouTube, welcome back to Unloved Autos. We have a delivery here today at the Unloved Autos Emporium. What you see here is a 1996 Mercury Sable LS in white with a tan interior. You are probably asking yourself, well, why would he be getting one of these? It seems like an odd selection even for this guy. Well, as I've mentioned here many times, I'm all about nostalgia and about owning things I couldn't afford when I was younger. The bulk of the things I buy fall into one of those two categories. This one falls into the nostalgia category. The second new vehicle that I ever bought was a 1996 Mercury Sable LS in white. That one had a gray interior instead of tan, but otherwise is identical to this car. Bought that car when my son was about to be born. Way back in 1995 is when I bought it, and needed a family car for toting him around. Had that car for several years, I think over 5, maybe 6 years. Great car. Had the best stereo, stock stereo in any car I'd had up until recent pickups that have amazing stereos, which is fantastic. That car served me very well, but eventually it was time to move on from it and sold it to my sister, who had it for a while, and then who knows where it went off into the ether. As the years have passed, I always thought to myself, I'd love to get another one of those Sables, just because, you know, I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. And this one popped up recently on Bring a Trailer, a site that I've used often, and not really a collectible car, but the miles were lowish, and it was in great shape. You can see a scuff there on the front bumper. Other than that, it's really nice. It doesn't even have the usual dents that you see on the doors of these cars. They're kind of a design flaw of sorts and make them susceptible to dents. I'll do a closer look at the interior and the rest of the car once we get it off the trailer. It looks like it has a dead battery. The guy pulled out the battery pack to get it started. Figures, huh? But I guess for the princely sum of $3,400 that I paid for this, I can't complain. It came out here from California somewhere, I forget where, and had it shipped here. Here we go. Finally coming off the trailer. Very exciting. I now have the Sable in the driveway. Let's take a closer look at it here, see what we get for 3,400 bucks. Engine sounds fine. Headlights, not too bad. Should be a lot cloudier than that, we'll take it. California license plate. Yank that off there and add it to the collection. Paint looks pretty good. It's a little dirty from the trip. A little bit of a paint crack there. Tires look decent. Right here, this weird little curve in these cars is where you used to get a lot of door dings, big ones. They're kind of stuck out in parking lots. In fact, my first Sable had it less than a month and got a big dent right there. I was so hacked. Rear looks pretty good. We're oddly missing the Sable LS and Mercury badges. Have to get those ordered, maybe on eBay or someplace. What's this say here? Built in Chicago with pride. I hear my assistant barking. Let me go let him out. The assistant has been freed. Now we may resume. Again, on this side, don't see any door dings. Impressive. Paint looks really good. We have some fading here on the B pillar on both sides. Come down here, you see this scuff on the bumper. That's really about it as far as body damage. Let's look at the inside. Door panels look good. Here we see this ovoid theme. There was a big player with Ford and Mercury on this generation. The cars were oval, the headlamps were oval, even door handles. On the inside, that cluster, ovals everywhere. When they did the refresh on these, they dumped all the oval because I guess buyers thought it was too much. I liked it. 55,440 miles. Fairly incredible for a car that's 30 years old. Holy cow. Seats are nice. A little bit of scuffing there. Back seat looks brand new. Oh, the assistant jumped in. All right, settle down. Let's pop the engine, or pop the hood real quick. Another oval. Easy to open hood. There we go. The Duratec. Ford put that engine in so many cars for so many years. Very sturdy, trusty V6 engine. Fast? No. Here's a dead battery. We'll replace that later today. Looking good. Looks really good. Very clean. So we can tell it's outside some because of the fading on the pillars, but overall, dash is good. Let's pop the trunk. There we go. Here's the trunk. What is that? Is it a car seat? Baby seat? What the hell is this thing? I don't even know. It's a massager. Well, that's really weird. Don't think we'll keep that. And here we have Blue Point EECR1A car scan reader. Well, that's nice. That's a little bonus. We'll take that. A glove. Maybe gross. We'll see. Very nice. AC works in this car. Bonus. Let's see if the radio antenna works. Hey, there it goes. Look at it. Oh, well, I spoke too soon. Went up a little bit. All right, turn that back off. What's in this box here? Hopefully not more massagers. Bosch something. What is it? Oh. All right, well, guess we'll have to go through those later. So there we have it for now. I'll do another video added to this a little bit later to give you the history of the Sable, because that's important. I may stick that at the front of the video, maybe at the end. It'll be on here somewhere. Make sure to listen for it. There we have it, the 1996 Mercury Sable LS, new addition to the fleet. Welcome, Sable. The one unworking, we'll say, aspect of the interior that I forgot to video. Those poor things are torched. May have to look into replacements or just tearing the cloth off there. Let's finish up our look at the 1996 Mercury Sable LS by discussing the history of this car. The first generation Mercury Sable came about in 1986. It was the sister car to the Ford Taurus. At the time, those cars were a tremendous break from the past at Ford in terms of how cars were looking and how they were going to look in the future. They were very bar of soap looking, very not square, unlike most early 80s and some late 80s cars. And they were a tremendous hit. They were smaller than the Crown Vic. They were a little bigger than the Granada, cars of that ilk. So they were good enough looking, and they sold in huge numbers. And in fact, the Taurus became the biggest selling car in America for quite a few years. There were 5 generations of Mercury Sables, some say. I personally say 3. To me, the first generation went from 86 to 95 with a refresh in 92. Some people split those up into 2 generations, even though they're really about the same car. The third generation is the one we see here. The fourth generation, as said by some, went from 2000 to 2005. Again, I think it's the same car from 96 to 05 with a refresh in the middle. And the final generation was 08 and 09. When they stopped making these cars after the 2005 year, the name died, and a new Taurus, well not Taurus, a new Ford 500 and Mercury Montego came out. They were bigger than these, but smaller than a Crown Vic, and probably less attractive, I guess, and didn't do so well with those old-fashioned names attached to them, names borrowed from 60s cars. And instead, after a couple of years, they switched the names back to Taurus and Sable again. This explains the last 2 years of the Sable in that generation. The Sable, from the very first year, had a light bar in the front, which was really cool. Basically a piece of plastic that went from one fender to the next and was backlit. Pretty unique. These days, all kinds of electrics and other cars have those, but the Sable was way ahead of its time when it had one. That eased into the second generation, or the refresh, however you look at it. But by this, the third generation, it was gone. It became, once again, a car with a grille. These little fancy lights in the middle there. Oops, there we go. The light in the middle where the logo is lights up, which is kind of neat. There were 3 levels of the Sable by this generation. The G, the GS, and the LS. The LS being on top. The G didn't last very long. It was kind of a fleet car and they got rid of it. 2 engines were available. A 3-liter Vulcan V6, 145 horsepower, or a different 3-liter V6, the Duratec, which this one has, 200 horsepower. In '98, the grille changed. On this one, see how it's mostly kind of clear? They added a Mercury waterfall to it in that last year. As was the case with most Mercury cousins to Ford cars, the Sable didn't sell nearly as well as the Taurus. It sold, first generation, they sold from 95,000 to 121,000 every year, when the Taurus was a whole lot more than that. The second generation / refresh had 112 to 138,000 each year, very strong sellers. And by this generation, they dropped off quite a bit. The public just didn't take to this new shape as much, and sales dropped off. And by the end there, they really decontented them and became mostly fleet cars, which was a shame because they last a long, long time. Here we have a 2005 Ford Taurus, owned by the lovely Kelly's daughter, although she's selling it soon. And she's had a series of these as just her runaround cars for a while. They run great. They're just, those engines are well built. Anyway, let's take a quick look at the end of this car, or the rear of this car, before I bring this to a conclusion. I want to show you the difference between the Taurus and the Sable. The Taurus had the ovoid look right down to the taillights. They were total ovals, and the Mercury wanted to be a little more formal, I guess, with these much longer, wider, I guess we see wider taillights. I thought were more attractive. Kind of accented the front of the car. And along those same lines, the Taurus, the rear window was even an oval. Kind of bizarre. But on this car, they wanted to make the Sable a little more formal, so it had a rectangular backlight. Looking over here at the Taurus, which is post-refresh, we really see how Ford got away from the ovoid thing. Taillights, the rear windows rectangular, the whole thing. Even the door handles are no longer oval. Let's see if we can see in there. Hard to see. Yeah, there they go. Some regular little handles there. And same with the dash. That brings us to the end of our look at the 1996 Mercury Sable LS. Next time, we'll take a look at another vehicle that arrived here at Unloved Autos on the very same day. That's a rare occurrence. Till then, drive safely.